Yo, B, this song's stuck in my head now, man. I'm gonna be out shopping later today, and it's gonna be in my head, and I'm gonna be bopping. People are like, "What's wrong with this dude, man?"
That's not a bad song to bop to, though. That's
I
what
know,
I'm saying.
man.
Yeah.
You know, we go back to our '80s swerve. You know what I'm saying? That cool walk we used to have.
Yeah.
All right, we've been running a little bit long, and I know my man's been standing by, and I appreciate him as always. I had the privilege of working with him for many years, and I've always loved his work. Still do. I watch him and I listen to him whenever I get the opportunity. Former co-worker of mine, always will be a friend of mine, currently works with Bear Brooks. Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philadelphia. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. It's good to see you, man. How are you?
Good, man. Good. All right. First thing I have to ask you is this. Give us an update on the Eagles injury report as you know it right now.
Yeah, they're relatively healthy. You look over at the Giants, and they have a ton of players, important players that are either gonna play or aren't gonna play, but are they're banged up. Eagles right now, Sean Bradley hasn't practiced all week. He's probably going to be out when that injury report comes out. Which I mean, he's a significant special teams player, but not a starter. The two guys who have been limited all week, Quez Watkins and Kaiser White, I expect them to play.
Okay,
and then. That's the only guys on the injury report. The other big name is Devonta Maddox. Said he had a pretty good week of practice, got through it all. He has a hamstring injury. So, in the back of your mind, it's like maybe you should be cautious. But if he's ready to go, and I think he is, he'll be activated on Saturday for this game. And that's a big matchup, too, because they have Darius Slayton's really the only receiver they have worth covering. And
he's a slot guy, right?
Yeah, I mean – especially since the Sterling Shepard injury, he's been playing a lot more in the slot. So getting Devonta back for this one will be big. But it's amazing how, I'll knock on wood here, how healthy the Eagles are right now. I know they have a few guys on IR, but, I mean, you're expecting to get all those guys back. And you look at a team like the Giants, I mean, big names. No Adoree Jackson, no Xavier McKinney. Saquon Barkley is hurt now. You have Leonard Williams dealing with an injury. Like, all these players over there, significant players are hurt. The Eagles don't really have that right now.
When you look at you look at this Eagles roster going into this game and going into the belief of who they are, do you think they take advantage of the run game or passing game? Because we've seen both the versatility of both run and pass being significant in the last two games. What direction you see them going in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can do both.
Right.
In this game. I mean, I really do. You can run on the Giants. They're giving up big chunks of yardage on the ground. And obviously we know their MO on defense is they just blitz more than any team. They blitz and then they play a man behind it. And they're so banged up with the cornerback position. Adoree's out. They have a few other corners hurt. Their only healthy corners, Fabian Moreau. So, and he's okay. But if you're asking me, do I like the receiver one-on-one matchups against those corners? Yeah, absolutely. Now you have to give Jalen time enough against the blitz, but they have blitz beaters now. And you and I were talking about this yesterday, Barrett. Like, I want to see what it looks like against such a heavy blitz team. We saw it in week 5 against Vance Joseph and the Cardinals, and it was just screen. And it kind of worked, but it was boring, and I thought they had better answers. And since then, we obviously haven't seen them get blitzed as much, but we've seen the next level of evolution there from Jalen and from the offense. So I'm hoping we see a mixture of things to beat the blitz in this game, because just from a purely talent standpoint, I mean, they have the horses to do it.
Hey, Dave, Rob Ellis brought up something earlier in the week, and I want to ask you this. Have we become spoiled by this Eagles team because they're so good?
I was talking about this to someone this week. They're good and they're kind of boring because they're so good.
Yeah.
There's no drama. They just, even the game they lost this year was actually the most impressive post-game locker room I've been in all year, because they lost that game to Washington, and it was a bad loss. They lost that game. Washington, they won it, but the Eagles lost that more than Washington won it. And it was so encouraging in that locker room. Just, there was zero panic. It was, we know exactly why we lost. We just got to fix those things. They're running like a machine right now. And, when they were rattling all these wins off early in the season, you were wondering oh man, is this another, Steelers team from a few years ago, or even the Cardinals from last year where They get off to this hot start, and then when it matters, they tail off. And that was the fear. You want to peak at the right time. They might just peak all year. And that's okay. Teams do that. It's rarer for that to happen, like to lose 1 or 2 games all year and go into the playoffs as the number 1 seed. But yeah, they're doing it. And they're just a really impressive team. It's a very complete team, too. It's like, that's the fun part. And last week, even special teams got in the mix finally and had a good game. But, you know, offensively and defensively, they're one of the most balanced teams in the league. If not, I think they probably are the most balanced team in the league. You look at like even the Chiefs, right? Who probably the favorite to come out of the AFC. They're not as balanced as the Eagles. You can argue they have that generational quarterback, and that helps quite a bit, but they're not as balanced as the Eagles. There's not a team in the league that's as balanced as the Eagles right now.
Well, in saying all that, does it worry you a little bit that they don't have an exact identity, that they can be a chameleon, they can play any style that they want to style, but what would you say they hang their hat on?
See, it's funny, and that's what impressed me so much about the last 2 games from the offense is they obviously go crazy run heavy against the Packers, 363 yards rushing, and then Jalen throws for 380 the next week. I'm cool with that. You know, I think if you're asking what they hang their hat on, it's the offensive line offensively, and that doesn't have to mean running the ball.
Right.
It often will. It often will be like, hey, we need some tough yards. We got to grind out a game. We're in a 4-minute drill. What do? You run the ball because they still feel like that's their biggest advantage every week. And to me, the offensive line is still the star of the show, even with Jalen playing at MVP level, even with A.J. Brown going crazy, Devonta Smith putting up big numbers. The offensive line is still the engine to this offense. So that's what they hang their hat on. But Shane Steichen the last 2 weeks, so impressed by that because I think so many coordinators or play callers would want to be balanced for the sake of being balanced, right? Like a couple weeks ago, they're like, man, we're running all. Let's pass. Let's mix it up. Let's pass. Or last week, like, no, we're a run team. We want to run the ball. Like, we can't pass. But it was working. So he just kept doing it. And it sounds so simple to do that, right? Like, it's working. You keep doing it, of course. Like, duh. But there are so many play callers in this league that would outsmart themselves in that situation. And he didn't do it. So I give him a ton of credit.
So Dave, as good as the Eagles are, and let's face it, we sit here today and we feel they are the odds-on favorite to get to the Super Bowl. But there's always that X factor we don't account for down the road somewhere. Who do you think the biggest threat is to the Eagles in terms of stonewalling them from getting to the Super Bowl?
Dallas.
Okay.
I think Dallas is the second best team in the conference. I would have said the 49ers. Losing the quarterback hurts. I still think they're a dangerous team. I mean, they're still a very good football team. And if there was one team that, not that could afford to lose a quarterback, but it wouldn't be as big a deal, it's that offense and the way Shanahan runs it. Like, you can hide the quarterback a little bit in that offense, but, you know, you lose your top 2 quarterbacks. That's tough to overcome. It's Dallas to me. And the nice thing for the Eagles is, as long as they win the division, they won't have to worry about them right away. That's the exciting part right now. If you're looking at the Eagles, the road is there. I mean, you get home field advantage. Going
through Philly, baby.
Man, it's even a different feeling than 17 because obviously they got the 1 seed and everyone counted them out. They'll have to approach it from the standpoint of being a favorite this year, and that can, that can be a little tougher, but it's right there for them. And if Kirk, some people are going to say the Vikings, right? If Kirk Cousins comes in an NFC Championship game and beats the Eagles, you throw your hands up. I'm not worried about Kirk Cousins and the Vikings.
Nope, I agree with you 100%. I agree. See, Barrett. See, Kirk Cousins is a regular season quarterback, and that's it.
Right. Well, I mean, all right then. So, in saying that, what scares you? Well, I'm not gonna say scared. Where do you look at this Giants? What's the strength of this Giants team? Do you see going in? What do the Eagles have to do mostly to beat this Giants team?
Yeah, I'll start with the Giants offense. Saquon, if he's healthy, is obviously really good, but he's hurting right now a little bit. To me, the scariest part of that offense is Daniel Jones running the football, which sounds kind of weird, but if you watch them, I mean, he's got 544 yards rushing this year, and he's not the runner that Jalen Hurts is, or Lamar Jackson is, or even Kyler Murray is to some extent. He doesn't have that pure speed, but it changes the numbers in the favor of the offense when you have a quarterback that can run like that. So you're a little worried about that. Those can be frustrating things when the quarterback runs on you. So, I mean, that's in the back of my mind offensively. And then defensively, I don't think they're particularly deep on their D-line, but Dexter Lawrence is very good. Very, very good. And Leonard Williams is good if he can be out there. So I think and they have a couple good edge rushers in Ojulari and the rookie Kayvon Thibodeau. So they have a good line, but I don't think it's as deep as it would need to be to really scare the Eagles.
Dave, we look at Miles Sanders, and in recent years he's had the injury bug trip him up in a lot of ways. Knock on wood, he's maintained his health this year, and he's approaching 1,000-yard season. Maybe not so much in terms of stats, but what has jumped out to you most about the way Miles has approached his business this year compared to past years?
He's the one thing that stands out to me is the way he's running. Early in his career, he left a lot of yards out there. Mm-hmm. He was trying to hit home runs. He was bouncing. He was avoiding contact. He's running, and it's funny, the stats actually don't bear this out anymore. They did for a while. It's a little fluky, but after the contact, he's been much better. He's running through tackles, and he kind of seems to have that awareness about him now to know when to do that, when to one cut and get up the field. Whereas, and every once in a while he'll still have a play where, there was a screen pass a couple weeks ago where he catches it and you're like, Miles, fall forward, dude. What are you doing? Yeah. And he's dancing around a little bit. But those plays are few and far between right now. Is that the saying? Few and far between?
Yeah, few and far between. Yeah.
In my head, I was like, is it the other way? No, that's right.
Come on, man. You're a writer. You should know this stuff.
It's one of those things where you say it so much and you're like, is that right? I don't know if that's right. But he's been much better in that area. He's just getting the yards that are there. And obviously he has good line in front of him and good line play in front of him, but he's maximizing those opportunities this year.
I look at this offense and how balanced they are. Look at the defensive side of the ball. I see him now stopping the run, the pass. When I look at Gannon and how he's approaching, to me it's different in the aspect that now he's starting to be a little more aggressive. I know a lot of people saying nah, but I think he is being a little more aggressive. Do you see him doing the same thing in this game going against the Giants? A little more aggressive?
He has been more aggressive. I think
people are saying no, he hasn't been aggressive. But I've been saying yes, he has been a lot more aggressive.
Yeah, look, and there are certain times where you're going to watch it and you're going to be a little frustrated because you're like, man, what? Especially for me, it's in the secondary. That's where I get a little frustrated at times. I'm like, you've got two of the best corners in the league. Sometimes you can press a little bit, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Third and 7 and you're 10 yards off. I'm like, well, I don't like that. But overall, I think he's called a really good season. I mean, what he's done, like the results speak for themselves. And the defensive coordinator position in this city gets so unfairly criticized. I mean, you're not stopping everyone. Like, look around the league. These offenses are really good. And it's like, you're not just going to shut everyone out every week. So
yes, it's not Buddy Ryan. It's not, the late and great Jimmy Johnson. This is Gannon's defense, and I think if we just take away from what happened last year and just apply exactly what you see, have blinders on, exactly what you've seen him do this year, you have to compliment what he's done.
Yeah, and I think having Bradbury has opened up the playbook a little bit for him. Mm-hmm. You can do a lot when you have two corners like that can lock down.
What about Maddox coming back? What do you equate that to?
Yeah, I mean, that'll help quite a bit. I'm really curious now to see what happens when C.J. Gardner-Johnson comes back because Reed Blankenship.
Yep.
playing
Yeah.
all right.
Da-da-da.
And
Yep.
they haven't been a heavy dime team since Gann has been here. They've rolled it out a little bit, but you have some options now that you can kind of play with matchups. Like you probably feel pretty comfortable having Reed out there
I do.
at moments. So you had a good tight end or a bigger slot receiver. You can kind of drop CJ down there and let him man up against them at times and have Reed back. I think it opens some options for you. Whereas Kayvon Wallace, when he was in that dime role, and give him credit because he's actually made some plays this year, but I think they're going to feel more comfortable with Reed after this stretch of him starting, at least the way it looks now. Now he could have bad 2 games here and we're saying, oh, we'll get Reed off the field, but so far it looks pretty good.
Hey, Dave, do you expect to see Nakobe Dean's role continue to expand? I mean, before the Tennessee game, he had played 4 defensive snaps. He gets 15 against Tennessee, and he's a co-leader in tacklers. And I was telling Barrett earlier in the show, to me, the most impressive play from him was he makes the one-arm tackle on Derrick Henry while he's trying to shed a blocker. And, I know he's a young player. I know, and he still makes the tackle. I know it's hard to get him in there when you look at the linebacking play overall, but is there a way that you see his role evolving as we continue to go to the finish line here?
Yeah, it's ideally you'd find a way to get him on the field because I think he can help you. He's a good player.
Yep.
Where's he playing? That's the problem. TJ certainly isn't going to leave the field. And I think Kazir's been okay. I think he started off real strong and he hasn't made those like splash plays recently, but he's been solid. And I don't think he's done anything to take away his job. So you're in this situation where, you feel really good if Nakobe has to go in there. We saw that finally in some extended reps. And I think there's like certain packages for him, like especially goal line stuff. They'll get him out there. But they're not running 3 linebacker stuff anymore. 3 off-ball linebackers. They're just not doing it. So hard to find snaps for him. It is. But I will say I'm still pretty bullish on him. And I think, both of your starting linebackers are free agents after this season.
Yep.
If I'm the Eagles, I'm prioritizing TJ Edwards. Nakobe Dean's my starting will next year.
Okay. All right.
I think so also. But Warren, you talking about who's the biggest free agent acquisition do you want on offense and what do you want on defense?
You mean of the pending free agents? Who would you like
on our team right now?
Yeah. It's tricky because just purely like player wise, Bradbury, but I think that's going to be really tough. Just because you're already paying a cornerback that type of money. So can you really have 2 corners making 18 to 20 million per season? That's tough. I prioritize CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's the big money guy that I think is gonna that you'd want to bring back just because he's so young. You traded for him, and he's still getting better at that position. Like he's a playmaker, and he has room to grow for sure. He's still figuring out the angles from that position, but he'd be at the top of my list, I think, in terms of who you'd want to bring back and also what's realistic.
Hey, Dave, it took him 12 games, but special teams finally showed up for the Eagles on Sunday. Do you think this is the sign of things to come, or are you still in the wait and see mode with this unit?
We'll see because the kick returns against the Packers obviously can't happen. But and if that was the only thing that went wrong all year, you'd be like, okay, yeah, they fixed it and they're good to go. But it's kind of been like something that's like a leaking boat, right? You plug one leak and another one springs up somewhere else. They've had, the fake punts. They've had some bad coverage mistakes. Until last week, they hadn't been able to return anything. They've had some bad penalties on special teams. So very encouraged by what I saw in Tennessee, but you got to do it for more than one game before I think that the problems are solved. But it was a good start. They were great in that game in every aspect. They were great, and they have the players that you think they should be good. When you have Sean Bradley and Kyron Johnson, who's been getting doubled a ton, by the way, he's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Christian Ellis last week made his mark. You have 2 more elevations for him. And then you have Andre Sachere once you get to the playoffs, if you want to elevate him then. So I think they have the players. Let's see them do it for more than 1 week.
Love it, man. I'm also looking at the aspect. You see Jalen at this point and how he's progressing. When you go into this Giants game where, you know, they're going to blitz the heck out of him. We know this. What do you think his response is going to be? You know, is it going to take flight and run, or do you think he's going to sit in the pocket?
It's funny. A year ago, if you asked me about Jalen Hurts playing a Wink Martindale defense, I wouldn't feel so good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, that was the book on him, and we saw Tampa do that in the playoff game. He couldn't handle the pressure. I'm not concerned about that. He's a different dude in the pocket, and that doesn't mean that there aren't occasions where he flees a pocket that he shouldn't leave. It's going to happen. It's the fine line when you have a quarterback with that athletic ability. There are going to be times where he leaves a pocket that's clean, and you live with that here and there as long as it's not becoming an overwhelming trend. And at times in his career, it has been way too much, right? But last week in that pocket, and I know it was a very, 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 very clean pocket, like the cleanest pocket you'll ever see. But the poise he shows in there now is completely different. And there was that one play where it was early, the shot play to Quez. I love that aggressiveness. It would have been an amazing catch, but he put it where only Quez could get it. He turned down someone. I don't remember exactly who it was. It was like a jet motion, and the defender didn't go with the motion. So he knows he has the flat open. That's an easy check it down. And maybe the coaches even wanted to do that. I don't know. Maybe that was the coaching. Like, hey, hit your check down there. But I loved to see him stand in the pocket, know he's going to get smacked, and deliver a pass that only his guy could catch. He's making some of those throws now, throws that he didn't have last year. He didn't have the poise to stand in there, get hit on the chin, and deliver a perfect pass. He's doing that this year. So I'm very excited to see how he handles the Giants defense.
Well, you know, we talked about how they're rushing him now because of that.
Yeah, the Titans, I mean, you don't have to worry about that this week. Wink Martindale is going to blitz him, but the Titans last week stopped rushing him.
Yep.
I mean, they
just went to a spot.
It was, start your rush, hold up, make sure he doesn't leave the pocket. Teams do that. He's too good of a passer now. That was a good strategy last year, maybe, especially if you have the cornerbacks the Titans have. They don't have the secondary to do that. You're dropping in the coverage. You're thinking the numbers play out for you. No, Jalen picked you apart. Not a bad strategy. Didn't work.
It's hard. It's hard to argue against anything with the success that we've seen of this Eagles offense all season long. But, you mentioned Quez Watkins a moment ago, and he only has 22 catches through 12 games. Are you surprised at something when you look at his speed and his ability to stretch the field that they haven't tried to incorporate him maybe a little bit more than they have in the offense?
It's just tough because, the offense has to run through the 3 guys, or at least the passing offense has to run through AJ, Dallas, and Devonta. So we're seeing it now without Goddard here for a little spell that Quez is getting a little bit more. And he should. I mean, he should be the next guy up. And you have to figure out the ways to do it. It's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But with Goddard out, you slide him up. We want to get Quez the ball more than Zach Pascal or more than the running backs. He should, or Jack Stoll, right? You want to see Quez get it. I've been impressed by just how patient Quez has been. Because when they brought in AJ Brown, he was the one affected most.
Yes, exactly.
Really. Devonta hasn't seen the drop in targets you might expect. Dallas hasn't seen the drop in targets. It's been Quez. Quez is the odd man out, but he's just accepted it, and he understands that his speed is still a threat, right? Even if he's not getting the targets, they have to respect it, and we're seeing that. And at times they are going to take shots with them, and Jalen's done that the last few weeks. Now, what I'm waiting for, and this is my big wrinkle, I've been pushing for the Eagles to do it all year. 3rd and short, you're in plus territory, right? what you're running the QB sneak because that's what they do. Run a shot play off of it.
Right.
Because you're going to go for it on fourth down anyway. Run a shot play on third and short and plus territory. They've had a few instances this year and they haven't done it, and it's bugging me. I want to see them take a shot.
You will be prophetic if they do this in the game and they take it for 6. You know, so just want you to know you threw it out there.
Yeah,
I hear you, and you know everything's all good. Well, looking at that offensive line and key matchups, I think they're going to put Thibodeau on you know, the big fella's side. You know, do you think, you know, that's going to be a huge massive? Can he move his feet? I mean, he's gotten better back. You know, Mailata's gotten better since, you know, the previous 3 or 4 games. He's back to getting into his own way. But, you know, how do you fare with that matchup with him and Thibodeau?
Yeah, and even if they put Ojulari on him, that's a tough matchup for him too, because he's kind of a smaller, bendy edge rusher. Yeah, I think Mailata, that shoulder was really bothering him more than he let on earlier in the year. Since that's healed, he's starting to look like the guy we saw last year. So,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, and there were some moments this year where you're like, man, he doesn't look right. And I think he played through it more than he should have, honestly. I think he probably should have sat out for a couple games to let that shoulder rest, because you have Dillard, who would have been okay. Give him credit for toughing it out. But now I think he's looking healthier, and that's mattered. It really has. He did a good job last week against Bud Dupree.
Yeah, he did. He shut him down.
Yeah, and Dupree's the kind of rusher who would have given him fits earlier in his career. He's kind of the same, you know, long bendy type of rusher. The power guys are no problem for him because he's a monster, but some of those sneakier edge rushers who are real fast give him trouble, especially sometimes they'll have him overset and they'll tuck it back inside. But
Dillard in at guard too. That's kind of surprising because he's looked pretty good in there.
Dillard at guard. I'll have to really go back and watch him. Who would have thought Andre Dillard would be this like super versatile player? He would go and play left tackle a couple years ago. He's looked fine at guard.
Yep. Yeah. Surprised me. It's shocking.
But watch that this week, by the way, because Landon Dickerson's been in and out of the lineup so much in these games.
Yeah.
Interior that Giants line is pretty good. Dexter is very good. So Dexter Lawrence is,
he's their number one. He's their number one inside guy.
Yep.
Yeah, he's playing at like a legitimate All-Pro level this year. So, and he plays kind of. He'll play a few different positions on the interior there. So he's lining up on both sides. So watch him if Dickerson's a little banged up.
Hey, Dave, man, I can't thank you for taking some time to talk to us. Always good to catch up with you and chop it up when we talk about Eagles football, man. And everybody out there, you can follow Dave on Twitter at Zangaro NBCS. Check him out on the NBC Sports Philadelphia website, his podcast with Reuben Frank. Enjoy the game on Sunday, man. I can't wait to see what you write after it's all said and done.
All right, guys. Thank you. Take care.
All right, man.
Thanks,
all right.
Dave.
That is the one and only Dave Zangaro. We are now in the final segment of the show coming up. On the other side of this break, we're going to give our top 5 power rankings in the NFL. We got to talk about Baker Mayfield and what he did walking off the streets.
Absolutely.
Last night. As I said, an Eagle or Phillies lose another pitcher. We've got, you know what? Rob Ellis is not the only one that does this. I got a couple of on this days coming up for you. We're going to do birthdays and movies as well. This is
great birthdays.
Day. Yeah, we got great birthdays. And I got one special birthday to start off with on this day. And there's a story behind it as well. So, yeah, we'll tell you about that and more coming up on the other side of this break. Xander, if you're awake, play my music. Yeah, baby.
Go for the beer.